Congratulations to all of you. We finally reached the last assignment of this entire class. So I'm sure it's been a long ride for you guys. I mean, we've gone through 6 modules now. And in those, we've discussed the hard skills, the soft skills, all the relationships of communication, written, verbal, nonverbal, emails, how we deliver all that stuff. And you're probably sitting there going, why was all this important? Because I really just want to get into project engineering. But that's really the important part of it. We really had to get you guys to this point so you could understand where this is going to take you. And legal is not something that we jump into very lightly, because you're not attorneys and we don't expect you to be attorneys. And the sooner you understand that, the better off you're going to be. But everything that you do on your job sites is in fact related to some sort of legal relationship to your contract with the general contractor and the owner and the architects and the engineers. So as we've moved through this thing, we've looked at the importance of the hard skills, which we've really talked about modules 1 through 5. And, the hard skills are the things that once you get it under control and you understand the mechanics of it, it's just something you repeat day in, day out, one following another. And then also through modules 1 through 5, we looked at the soft skills. And that's where you think about what you're doing. And why is it I want to compose this in a certain way? And use the basic rules of the 1, 2, 3, understand your question that you're dealing with, 2, doing your homework, and then 3, coming up and formulating solutions. So all of that has been wrapped up and we've kind of beat it into you through modules 1 through 5. Now we're going to get a chance to look at why these things are so important. And in this individual assignment, we're going to look at the soft skills which you've accumulated through all these studies and look at how we can apply those skills that you've learned to provide you with a solid foundation as it relates to legal matters. And most importantly, we've seen that we can communicate in a very professional manner that is actively involved with resolving problems and coordinating the work in a very professional manner. And that's the key point right there. We're resolving problems and we're coordinating our work and we're being professional about it. And from all that knowledge, you're now able to look at your effort to in your communications that establishes a project record. And we've really not brought this up in the past because we've been more interested in you just doing the functions that you do every day. But through all of those everyday functions that you're doing, the 200 emails you're dealing with and all the different letters and the RFIs and everything that hits your desk, you're establishing what's called a project record. And the project record serves to document the fact that you're performing in accordance with your contract and that you're doing so proactively. It's not like the general contractor's having to beat you over the head to get anything done. You are being very professional. You signed a contract with somebody and you're out there proactively doing that contract whenever you're allowed to do so. So the project record is a sum of all communications that have occurred on the project, and that becomes the basis of fact. And when we say base of fact, that means when the lawyers show up and they're having to deal with a dispute, the only thing they're going to go to is the project record, because that's all they can go on. The rest of it's all hearsay. Typically in a legal situation, it's a year down the road, 2 years down the road before everybody's quantified the amount of loss and the amount of problems that occurred. So all they have is the paperwork. So if you're a pretty good project engineer and you've really documented it, you've just made that lawyer's case easy as heck for him to go defend. But if you don't have a good project record, that lawyer's sitting there going, how in the heck am I going to pull this off? Even though you may have done everything the right way, you just didn't document that you were doing it in the right way. So, positive documentation is just as good as negative documentation. So, and you're going to learn as time goes on that the legal system works on a much different set of rules than we do in our everyday world of project management. And in their world, if there is no evidence within the project record, meaning all your correspondence and all your emails and everything, if there's no evidence within that can substantiate a legal claim, then guess what? It just never happened. Because how can they go into a courtroom and tell 12 people that, yeah, Joe said this and that's what really happened, when they've got 5 other guys sitting on the other side as witnesses going, no, I don't think so. And but when you do write it, it does bring a very definitive relationship. So the lawyer, instead of the lawyer saying Joe said, it says, if you'll refer to the correspondence written on so-and-so date by Mr. Joe, that he was being delayed because he couldn't get his electricians in that area, guess what? You got something to go on. And if the general contractor didn't respond back to you and say, oh, I think you're crazy, then in fact he's admitted to the fact that there was that problem there. He just avoided it. He didn't want to deal with it. So you've established a claim that the lawyers can deal with 2 years down the road when you're not even involved with this project. So it's hard to believe that through all your work that you could be penalized for some action simply because the project record doesn't support your claim. And then there's the even worse situation that a company becomes responsible for some sort of damage that was never his fault or his doing. I mean, you were out there, you saw it, you didn't mean to create fault, you didn't mean to do anything wrong, but you couldn't document it in a way to show that you were doing the right things. You were too busy dealing with the issue instead of documenting the issue as well into the project record. Then that goes back to how well you can communicate. Obviously, some people do verbal, but it's always important to take those verbal conversations, depending on the circumstances, and back up with some form of written correspondence. And this is just simply the facts. The project record, which is supported by all of your communications that you do daily, and that's the RFIs, the ASIs, the emails, on and on and on, is the only way in which your company can defend itself against wrongful or frivolous lawsuits. And we see this a lot. A guy walks on a job site and trips and falls and sues the general contractor. Well, he doesn't just sue the general contractor, he's going to sue everybody. It's called the shotgun approach. Just find anybody that's got money with deep pockets and try and say that, oh, I caused this guy to never be able to work again because he tripped on the sidewalk next to the job site. But they do happen, and they happen more often than you think. So in your project record, if you can document that stuff and make it show that you're very proactive on the safety side of it. If you see anything that may be wrong, you point it out, right? That only makes you more responsible and more able for your attorney to go in and fight these stupid cases that just show up from nowhere. And luckily, if you have established your communication skills to such a point that every action in which you make is documented, and then let's go a little bit further, in some fashion that shows responsible action, meaning when you document it, you show that you're taking action, that you're not just documenting that say, oh, this is all messed up, that you are, as a result of it being messed up, you are trying to do this, this, and this. So you're a responsible party trying to resolve issues. Then you stand a great chance. I said good here, but a great chance of avoiding or mitigating any legal situation that may happen on a job site. But once again, it has to be documented, and verbal communication is a great way to get things started. But guess what? If it's not written, it's not true in the project record game. And in law, that is so true, because if it's only up to your word, then it's going to be your word against somebody else's word. And lawyers use the term called selective amnesia. And that was when all the parties seem to forget what really happened, but they all have a great story on what they think happened. So by understanding that the project record comes from your actions as project engineers, it makes it real easy for you to properly establish your company's performance through the amount of communication you're generating daily. So I go back to this. The most important soft skill that you can learn is to know when and how to document events of the project. So in modules 1 through 5, we ran through how you do it and what that is. Now we're really going into that soft skill, when and how. And if I see this happen and I think just in my mind, you know what, this could be looked at a different way, then I better document it, right? Or I'm not so sure Joe's going to remember next week that he told me to do this today. Document it. And that means putting it in writing. So as part of the soft skills, the methods that you're going to learn in documenting your performance is really going to establish the level of professionalism that you have within your company, because you're now protecting the company. By doing these things properly, you're protecting the company, and that is your job. The company pays you money, so you owe an alliance to them to make sure that they can continue to do that. So as project engineers, this factor is going to establish the value, your value to the company on a long-term basis. And if you're able to document your project records so as to protect your company and its performance, you're going to become a very, very valuable asset. You're going to become a problem solver, a leader, a project manager, a project executive. Who knows, right? But it's going to come from how well you can communicate and maintain that project record as a project engineer. So, now we're going, and this is kind of closing everything and trying to bring all these soft skills and everything that we've talked about for so long through this communication class. But the way in which you approach your communications will bring you to a point where your reputation is going to be established. And that's going to be a long-term establishment, because if people know that you're really very good at documenting and very good at resolving issues and making things happen proactively, you're going to find yourself in a much better position than otherwise. And by developing yourself, using all the tools that we've discussed herein, and there's a lot of them, and there's a lot more that you're going to learn as time goes on, you're now to the point where you can start building your approach so that it fits your personality. And in essence, it becomes the glove that only fits your hand. That is who you are. So when you go into a room of 5 or 8 managers sitting there, you can pretty much tell which personality is this and that and how they are. Each one has an individual leadership skill set different from another person, and that's how it all fits together. So in your case, you're going to have to study your weaknesses and your strengths. And for a lot of people, verbal is very difficult for them. So they're not very good verbal communicators, and so they fall into the realm of being a written communicator. Well, you need both. You need the verbal establishes the dialogue in which to work problems out, and then you document of the problems through your written correspondence. So how you do that and how you use your skills is going to be your personality and your style. And basically that's where leadership is developed. By developing your own style, using communication as your primary means, because guess what? People know the only way people know you is through how you communicate. They don't know you when you're just sitting behind a desk pounding on a set of keys and they're not related to it. They're only going to know you when you get up and you start talking to them about a specific problem and how you want to address it and how you want to do this, and then how well you follow it up in a series of either RFIs or change orders or meetings, on and on and on. So that's where you need to really work through this whole process and look at now back on this overall communication class and say, all right, this is me. Now, out of everything I've studied in here, where am I really good and where am I really bad? And how can I make all that intertwine with each other so that I can truly establish myself as a leader and eventually become the next project manager or the next senior executive or project director? You never know. Because it's all going to be on how well you're able to develop your style of leadership through your communication. So with that said, I hope every one of you has gotten a lot out of this module. And we're going to go into a lot more detail into the legal sides of it on a more specific basis as we get into some of the further classes. I think towards the end of this first year, you're going to really start seeing how contracts work and that type of stuff. But if you don't have this part of it under control, it won't help you a darn bit when you get into the more difficult relationships of how legal works with construction. So with that said, I'm going to leave it with you. If you will, just go ahead and take your last test, which is already set up for you, and at which point we'll issue a certificate of completion for this course. And by far, this is one of the toughest courses you're going to take. So I hope that, you guys get through it just fine, and we'll see you on the next series, which is going to be on logs.